Hi guys, and welcome back to another Premier League prediction video. Now, we're moving on to round 3, but let's recap round 2 quickly. So, I somehow managed out of the 10 games to get 4 scores completely correct, which I was pretty impressed with, and I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. The 4 scores I got were Liverpool to beat Burnley 2-0, Leeds and Everton to draw 2-2, Tottenham beating Wolves 1-0, and Chelsea beating Arsenal 2-0. Now, I'm very happy we've got what I got last week, as I only set a target of 2 scores correct, so getting 4, very impressive. Let's see if I can keep it up again, but I'm hoping this week to at least get 2 scores correct. Let's get into my predictions. Starting with the first game, which is the early kickoff on Saturday, and it's Man City versus Arsenal. Now, I want to focus on Arsenal. They've lost both their games, both 2-0 to Brentford and Chelsea. However, although they haven't scored, they did play in the Cup in midweek against West Brom. Now, it was pretty much West Brom's reserves, as I'm pretty sure they rested all 11 starting players. But Arsenal, they did put out quite a few main players. Aubameyang, Pepe were playing, Saka, all of these players playing, so it gave them a bit of a chance to get some confidence, and they did end up winning 6-0 with Aubameyang scoring a hat-trick, so that'll help out the team's confidence. And although, yeah, it was against West Brom's reserves and now they've got Man City, it should help them out a bit and maybe get them a goal at least this game. Now, Man City lost the first game against Tottenham, that 1-0, but they did come back last week and absolutely annihilate Norwich. They beat them 5-0. And that's more of what we expect. Now, this game, I think Arsenal are going to get a goal just because players will be a bit higher on confidence after their midweek game, that 6-0 win. But Man City, they do have too much, especially after beating Norwich 5-0. They're going to carry on that form. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than people might assume, but I'm going to put this as Man City to win 2-1. Moving on to the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and the first game we've got is Villa versus Brentford. Now, Brentford, 2 games in, beat Arsenal 2-0, drew with Palace 0-0. They're yet to concede in the Premier League, which is pretty good going. However, I hate to say it, but I think that's going to change now, because they haven't played against a player as clinical as Danny Ings yet. Danny Ings started off his Villa career, 2 games, scored in each of them, and I think he's going to do it again. Villa, they beat Newcastle 2-0 last week, and they looked okay, but I think it was more of Newcastle not being very good. But I think Villa are going to win this, as much as I hate to say it. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Villa, and a little tip, I'm probably going to say that Ings is going to score again. Really wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, 1-0 to Villa. Next game, Brighton versus Everton, and this could be quite a high-scoring game, I reckon. Brighton won both their games. They're currently on a 100% record, and they've scored 2 goals in each game. Everton, last week, drew 2-2 with Leeds. Week before that, opening weekend, they beat Southampton 3-1. So, again, more goals. And it's making me think I'm going to go down the middle, but I think it is going to be a high-scoring draw. So I'm going to go for Everton again to draw this week, 2-2. On to Newcastle versus Southampton now. And Southampton, they got that shock 1-1 draw against Man U last weekend. So fair play to them for that. They did lose 3-1 before that to Everton, but they got the 1-1 draw. And I really like the combination of Adam Armstrong and Che Adams. Obviously, I like Che Adams as a Blues fan, so I like to see him do well. But I think that could be quite a nice duo for this season. Newcastle lost both games. They're on 0 points, and their latest loss was that 2-0 loss to Villa at the weekend. Now, for this one, I think it's going to be quite a tightly contested game. But I just fancy Southampton to nick it. I think Newcastle are going to lose again, and Southampton are going to win 2-1. Going to Carrow Road now, where Norwich host Leicester. And Norwich have had a very difficult start. They've got no points, they've scored no goals, and they've got -8 goal difference from their first 2 games. However, they have played Liverpool and Man City. the last two winners of the Premier League, so there's no surprise that they lost those games. They won 6-0 in the Cup in the week against Bournemouth, which was a very impressive win, and hopefully it gives some of their players some confidence and they can score some goals. For this game, I think the majority of people will go Leicester will win it, but I'm not so sure. I think Norwich, that 6-0 will give them a bit of confidence. Leicester, they just lost. They got battered 4-1 by West Ham. West Ham were very impressive in that game, but Leicester were not great at all. And something in the back of my mind is just telling me that Norwich are going to get something out of this game. So I'm going to go for a shock and it to be down the middle, a 1-1 draw. Going to a team now that have been very impressive this season, and Mikel Antonio is now the Premier League all-time top scorer for this team. It's West Ham, and they are facing Palace. Now, West Ham have started brilliantly. They've scored 8, conceded 3, and they're currently sitting top of the league as they've won both games. They're top of the league on goals scored because the other two teams have scored 5, conceded none. But they do have very exciting games. And Palace, they haven't started particularly well under Vieira. They got that 0-0 draw with Brentford. They lost 3-0 the week before to Chelsea. I think it's going to take a bit of time to gel. I think they're going to need Eze and Elise in the team. And Eze is obviously out until probably around Christmas time, which is a big worry. But I don't think Zaha can do it all by himself. I know he's got Benteke, but it is very much Zaha. Now, West Ham, I think they've just got too much quality. Benrahma and Antonio have been absolutely running the show and pulling the strings this season for them, and I can see them doing it again. But I think Palace will score, as West Ham have conceded in both their games so far, so I'm going to go for West Ham to win 3-1. The next game is probably the biggest game of the weekend, and I'm really looking forward to watching it. It's the late kick-off on Saturday. It's Liverpool versus Chelsea. And for this game, it's two teams, both won both games, both scored 5 goals, both conceded none. So exactly the same record for both teams, sitting even. And I think most neutral fans anyway, will be on the fence for this one, probably call it as a 1-1 draw. But I am actually going to pick a team, and it's Chelsea. And it's just down to the fact that Lukaku, I think, is going to have a brilliant season. And I think he's going to finish top scorer. And I don't see a way that Liverpool can cope with him. I think Lukaku will have Van Dijk, especially with Van Dijk coming back from that injury, probably not being at full fitness yet. And he hasn't really been tested this season in their first 2 matches against Norwich and Burnley. So Lukaku is going to have the Liverpool defence really, really busy, and it's going to bring other people into play. So I'm going to go for Chelsea to win this one, 2-1. And a little tip on this one, I think Lukaku's going to score again. Moving into Sunday's fixtures and kicking off with Burnley versus Leeds. Now, Burnley haven't started great. They've lost both of their games so far. Leeds, they were hammered 5-1 by Man U, but then they did pick up that 2-2 draw against Everton. So there's their first point. And one thing we know about Leeds is their games are always full of goals. So it's making me think that Burnley will score in this game, as Leeds have conceded in both games so far. But I think Leeds will pick up their first win of the season, as I don't really fancy Burnley. So I'm going to go for Leeds to win this 2-1. Getting into the next game, which is Tottenham versus Watford. And the big news around Tottenham at the moment, and I'm sure all the fans will be very happy, is that Harry Kane is staying. And I originally predicted that Tottenham would finish 8th this season, and that is definitely going to be wrong now. They will easily finish higher than that, as they've already picked up 6 points from the first 2 games in 2 1-0 wins, and they've got a very good array of attacking options. Kane, Son, Moura, Bergwijn, Gill, just to name a few. Ali looks like he's coming back into a bit of form, so they will be absolutely fine. And Watford, on the other hand, I'm a bit worried about them. They didn't look very good in that 2-0 loss last week to Brighton. And they did get the opening day victory against Villa, but I think Villa just had a bad day and Watford caught them out. So for this one, I think Spurs will win by more than 1 goal. and I think, to be honest, it's going to end 3-0 to Spurs. Moving into the final game of the weekend, at the Molineux, it's Wolves versus Man U, and this game I've really been struggling with. I don't know what to go for. I'm very indecisive, as I can see this going either way. And it's because Wolves, they've lost both their games 1-0, but they've played very well. And according to Who Scored, they have created 42 shots in the 2 games, which is just crazy. But they haven't managed to score. And surely, sooner or later, they have to score that goal. And I think when they score one, the floodgates will start opening and they will start scoring more goals. And for some reason, I'm thinking that this will be the game where they get that goal and maybe a few. With Man U drawing last week 1-1 with Southampton, they weren't great, they weren't clinical, and I don't know, I've just got a feeling that Wolves are going to get some goals in this game. But I think Man United will too, which is unfortunate for Wolves, but Man U have the attacking power to get the goals. So for this one, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. So those are my predictions for the 3rd round of Premier League fixtures. I've went for some shocking results in there. Wolves getting a point against Manchester United, Norwich drawing with Leicester, and also I've chose Chelsea to win in that big clash between Liverpool and Chelsea. Please let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with. Please put your predictions down in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more Premier League and Championship content, and if you could, please share with your friends. It would really help the growth of the channel, and it would help me out a lot, and I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this weekend's fixtures, and hopefully I can get more than 2 correct scores correct again.